Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Hatchett, and this is my brother Aaron Hatchett.
Hello.
You would probably be more familiar with Aaron from his YouTube channel, Aaron Somethin. Link will be in the description below. As you can tell, we're twins. How are you doing?
I'm okay. We just ate not that long ago, so I'm full.
Yeah, super stuffed. We decided to eat way more than we're supposed to. So this video is going to be the first of hopefully many, where I sit down and have a nice casual chat with a guest, in this case, Aaron, in hopes to be able to advertise their new channels, as if it was YouTube or a podcast or anything like that. Even if it's neither of those, if it's just anything that they want to promote. But this is my opportunity to get to know them and for you guys to get to know them and so on and so forth. Of course, I obviously have plenty of knowledge of Aaron, but you guys get to learn Aaron from a whole new perspective. So, Aaron, I'm going to be asking you very simple questions as far as yourself, the channel, what have you. How have you been lately? What's the life like for Aaron J. Hatchick?
Uh, it's been okay. I've been doing a lot of projects, whether it's YouTube or I've been doing a commission project for a client I'm actually not supposed to talk about. But
Will you be able to talk about this client in the near future?
relatively soon, it'll probably be closer to the middle of September or maybe the end of September. Um, it's nothing like super crazy big. It's purely just I signed a contract. But other than that, it's really just been that, the YouTube channel, and I've had a lot of time to start on things that I've been pushing off for a long time. So I've been taking that as an opportunity to do so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Let's just hop right in. Also, disclaimer, if you hear any background noise that sounds unfamiliar, that might be the noises of Aaron's dog Kale, who is joining us.
We finally got him to lay down.
Yeah, and before we could record, he was doing that nonstop, so if you hear anything, that's Kale. First question. Where did the channel come from, and how did it come to be?
I've always wanted to do YouTube for years now. The original idea was maybe 4 years ago when we were roommates and we shared a place with a couple other roommates. The original idea was to do more of like a movie analysis type thing, similar to, for anyone who's familiar, the YouTuber Thomas Flight is his channel. Um, I wanted to do stuff that was very, you know, more monotone, more serious, and just talking about like films and the, secret meanings behind it, and maybe even pitch particular stories and such. But I ended up leaving it alone and focused on work. A few years have gone by, and just recently I left a job that I had been working at for a few years. And with a lot of the free time, I had been binge watching some YouTube and I stumbled upon a channel of Scott Kramer. Simple channel, I mean, he just does a lot of commentary, but his is very humble and wholesome, but he tries to make it fun and comedic, but he mixes it up every now and then. So the video that I stumbled across was the Have You Seen Bible Man
Hmm.
episode that he had done, which is a great episode. And anyone who hasn't seen Scott Kramer, I would recommend watching his channel. But his that episode was actually different from what he typically does because he was just sitting on a couch, um, being nostalgic over the show that he used to watch as a kid. Excuse me. And I kind of thought about doing that same thing, mixing the idea of what I wanted to do prior to, but closer to the format of what he does, along with another YouTuber called Mr. Gigi. Sorry. Um, where it's just really like it kind of just feels more like it's me and the audience and just having more fun with it, being a little loose and just being able to have a more engaging channel other than something that was flat and very analytical.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of just or wrote down some ideas. My first two videos are up already. First of which is just like a pitch for a Spawn movie because of the new Spawn movie that's coming out in the next couple of years, starring Jamie Foxx.
Right.
That video, I will admit, does have poor audio. It wasn't something I figured out until a couple days after posting it. That the audio is rather poor when posting it to YouTube because there was just a couple things I missed in the uploading process. And but the only reason I never took it down and changed it out was because it actually got a pretty good viewing for its first couple days, so I just left it. And in the next video that I posted for Section 8, which is a much more fun and engaging episode, which I'm actually really proud of, I fixed the audio for that one. So if you do watch the Spawn one, I apologize. We're just gonna have to bear it for now. Um, but yeah, I'm proud of both of those videos, and I have another video coming up soon on 21 Jump Street.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that one.
Can I just say personally? So I was super excited for Aaron's video to come out, especially his first one. I just remember hopping on YouTube and seeing his thumbnail right there, and I was like, holy shit. When I watched it on my TV, and my volume was up to its normal volume setting, and I heard it just fine. So when I was hearing people talk poorly about the audio, I was like, what? It sounds fine. But my TV was just a little louder. But then I did watch it on other things like my phone and my computer, and I could kind of see what people were talking about. But it is what it is. It's still a great video. Watch it. Just turn up the volume a little bit. Yeah, he still has two great videos to watch, coming out with a third. So, still amazing content, if I do say so myself, not being biased whatsoever.
Thank you, thank you.
Next question. What was your childhood dream job slash life?
So when I was little, I mean, it jumped around a lot. I mean, I remember when I was really, really little, I always wanted to work at like a zoo.
Hmm.
I love animals, and I always wanted to just be someone who attended to the animals,
Right.
even if it was like labor work or scooping poop. It still would have been a cool environment to work in. And then I remember it changing to wanting to be a police officer and then wanting to join the army as an army ranger. And then for a long period of time, it was video game development. More specifically, being like a creative director, just essentially someone making all the decisions, which I know is like something really hard to shoot for, especially. But I was young, I didn't understand that. I thought it was something
Mhm.
like I could prove how talented and creative I was, and someone would be like, that guy.
Right.
I started to become more interested in the cinematic trailers of video games
Hmm.
other than the actual video game itself.
Right.
I mean, a great example is World of Warcraft. Like the game, there's nothing, I don't have anything against the game. It's not my style or a game I particularly like to play, but I always loved the cinematic trailers for them. They were always awesome to watch. So I became really obsessed with the idea of being a part of making those too.
We were both obsessed with the cinematic trailers for any game, really. I just remember how, especially us not understanding the variation of games, especially when we were younger, sometimes we'd get really hyped for a game because of its cinematic trailer and just how intense it was, especially for games like World of Warcraft, Warhammer, so on and so forth. But the game itself would kind of like, I don't know. There's a lot of people out there who are huge fans of these games, but for me personally, I don't know. I was kind of let down to a degree. For example, Aaron and I were huge fans of Halo, like just the whole series and franchise.
Still are.
Right, for what it is. Um, and when we were first getting into like playing video games on like Xbox 360 and what have you, we were really into Halo 3 and Halo Reach. So with that said, when we saw things like the cinematic trailers for Halo Wars, we're like, cool, another Halo game to play. then we'd play it. For us personally, we were just like really let down because we didn't understand again the variations between games.
Like that they had different series
Right.
like running simultaneously.
So it was kind of a letdown to a degree. Um, Obviously, I'm older now, so I understand why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
I will say my personal favorite video game franchise of all time, which is Assassin's Creed. Do with said information what you want. It's my favorite. But cinematic trailers were peak. Um, each one told an amazing story. All the way from the first Assassin's Creed game in what 2007, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, all the way till now. The cinematic trailers are just amazing. But you actually like see that game in the trailers. Like the mechanics of manipulating the crowd, types of assassinations, a lot of the gameplay aspects you get glimpses of in the trailers. So when you see the gameplay, it's like, this is what I expected from it.
Yeah, like it looks like it's translated from the cinematic trailer into gameplay.
Right.
Right.
But then you had games like Halo Wars, which I don't know how you would be able to, obviously, but especially when you're not aware of what the game is like to begin with. When you watch the trailer, your brain's like, oh, another Halo game. And then you play it, and it's like, this is not like any other Halo game. Which, for some of you, if you love Halo Wars, great. If you're like Aaron and I, then you know what we're talking about.
I'd say a big exception to the rule is Diablo. Because I mean, growing up, I never really cared for games like Diablo,
Hmm.
and I remember having very little experience with Diablo 2 years ago. Um, but when they first showed the reveal cinematic trailer for Diablo 4
Hmm.
and like Lilith coming down being summoned by Elias, and that shit sold me. I was like, yes, I want to play that. I don't know what it is. And I even like binge watched lore videos so that I had like a whole understanding of it.
Hmm.
But that's probably the one exception because while I typically don't care for games like that, the story and the lore, especially the cinematic trailers, were just enough for me to be like, I want to play this game.
Yeah. Um, I'm I love the Diablo universe for what it is. Um, Again, it's something that I was just recently introduced to, which like I've known of Diablo for years, but when I was younger and I was extremely picky with what kind of games I played, um, knowing what kind of style Diablo was, I was like, no, if the game's bad, everything about it is bad. That's obviously not true because playing Diablo 4, getting to know everything there is to know about Diablo, it's definitely worth playing. And the universe and story writing is superb. So, with some of that being said, next question. So, knowing what your answer was for your childhood dream job and your dream life, what is your current dream job in your dream life?
Well, the dream, like the end goal, is to be a film director. Um, Kind of comes from the idea of the cinematic trailers when I started to have a fascination with it. Um, we joined when we got into high school, I joined their digital media academy,
Right.
and it's integrated into all of the classes, including English class. And one of my great teachers, Mr. Bandy, I know you're out there. I hope you end up watching this video. But because my first 2 years were in animation, but getting to know Mr. Bandy and a lot of the English teachers that really liked the idea of driving home the secret meanings behind movies
Mm.
and like their themes and like more specifically, we actually went over the movie The Witch in high school
Mm.
and like how they did shots and how it can like translate a particular tone in the movie.
Yeah.
And I just immediately became obsessed. So I switched over to video production my last 2 years, the last of which being our school's broadcast. But I just started reading up on film all the time. I started watching Thomas Flight's videos and film theories, stuff like that. And I wanted to do that. I liked the idea of, like the cinematic trailers to games are cool and all, but there's something about like real people and being able to use practical effects aside from like graphics and CGI that seems much more interesting and like fun to do. I mean, hell, you know how even if the movie might not turn out great, you know how fun an alien movie would be to make?
Oh yeah.
Like getting a guy in a suit and having like a whole sci-fi setup
Right.
and like putting fake blood and alien guts on people. Like that'd be so much fun to make. Like that's an experience to remember for a lifetime. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to I want to be a part of that.
Hmm.
And to answer another part of the question, the YouTube channel, I'm hoping I'll kind of be able to use that in the next few years as a resource. I mean, right now it's just a hobby.
Right.
I obviously don't have a lot of followers yet, and it doesn't have like a crazy amount of viewings, but hopefully when the time comes that I hopefully get sponsors and I get paid from YouTube and stuff,
Hmm.
I can save money and eventually use YouTube as a resource to do what I really want to do.
It seems to be how a lot of people are getting in, like using YouTube to make like skits or like short films, things like that, especially channels like the Corridor Crew, who they made their whole careers off of their small skits and the short films that they would make for their channel.
I mean, those two guys, I'm kind of frustrated that I'm blanking on what their channel was called. For those two twin brothers that were making
Oh,
skits like on Vine and YouTube
what's their
when we
names?
were like really little, not really little, but when we were in like middle school, high school, they just directed the movie Talk to Me,
Yeah.
and it's a huge hit. I mean, they probably got a lot of resources from their YouTube channel and all of their skits. I mean, I actually watched one of their videos and they were talking about how some of their bigger action videos were funded by like a Australian production team. But hell, like to approach A24
Hmm.
and have like a movie in mind and A24 like not mess with it at all and they're just like they assigned a cinematographer to their movie
Hmm.
and they became friends and they're like, go nuts, make your movie.
Right.
And it being the success that it is, that's crazy.
That, yeah. It's nice to know that people with talent like that have been recognized properly. I mean, depending on who you ask, there's plenty of people out there who are rather getting into like the film industry and they're making okay stuff. Or, sorry, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of talent out there that should be recognized and they should be given the resources they need to make like their creativity into big products. Like I can't tell you how many short films I've seen from like movie festivals and stuff like that. And I'm like, I would love to see this as a full-fledged movie, but it'll never happen
Hmm.
because there are other people who are runner-ups that shouldn't be, but hey, what do I know? Next question. Because you're getting into YouTube now,
Hmm.
and of course it's just starting, do you have any kind of like bucket list for your YouTube channel? It doesn't have to be realistic per se, but like if you had like a certain idea of things you'd want to do with your channel or people you'd want to meet or to collab with,
Hmm.
is there any kind of like specific bucket list you have?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's really forward thinking to even be talking about right now, but yeah, I've always had like ideas of where the channel could go. I mean, I do have a plan of where the channel will go.
Right.
But hypothetically, like in a dream scenario, I would be able to make a video or even just meet some of the people that inspired me to make the channel, such as Scott Kramer or Mr. Gigi. Maybe even on Mr. Gigi on his channel has a series that he made himself called Pick a Hand,
Mm.
where it's like an interview process, but he kind of throws in like a game twist to it, where he has them pick a hand and it shoots them to a different topic, and as the questions progress, they get more and more spicy. Um, I've always thought of like a scenario where like we would do that video, and even on his channel, even me try to like throw a loop and ask him questions because he's always asking people the questions, but like I wonder what it would be like if someone sat down, did some the research he does, and asks him similar questions,
Hmm.
you know, or even like completely new questions. But the biggest list, and it's kind of what we were talking about before, is making a movie on YouTube. I mean, great examples of this are Markiplier
Hmm.
is in the process and soon to release um, Iron Lung,
Right.
which he made. You know, a lot of that resources from YouTube. And those guys who made the Spider-Man Lotus movie, as of right now, like just a couple days ago, they premiered the movie and it's up on YouTube as we
Right.
speak.
Hmm.
Kind of want to watch that now. Um, but yeah, I would like to be able to use the resources of YouTube and whatever I can make off of it to make a movie, whether it's something I post on YouTube or something that becomes even bigger than that
Hmm.
would be cool. But just as time goes on, if I can like start collecting the resources and the money to make something like that, it would be really fun. That's probably at the top of the list. It's probably like further down the line,
Hmm.
but I definitely have that in mind. I'd like to do that.
Do you have like a specific list of maybe certain YouTubers that you would like to rather meet? I know you mentioned Mr. Gigi,
Hmm.
but is there like a
Yeah, Scott Kramer. I'm a fellow struggler.
um so would you say it's just those two, or are there other YouTubers that you'd
I,
like to?
I mean, I'm sure there's a few. I mean, there's so many, there's hundreds, maybe even thousands of creators on YouTube that are all talented and would be amazing to meet. I mean, there's artists. I watch a lot of art channels. I would love to meet someone like Jazza.
Right.
Maybe even go to the studio and make something with him. That would be a lot of fun. Um, but he does, he has bigger projects, and I just do traditional drawings. So I don't know. But or Jake Parker, the guy who's responsible for making um, Inktober.
Hmm.
I'd love to meet him or Adam Duff. Someone who'd be fun to talk to. I don't know if you've ever watched his videos. Is Dylan from Dylan is in Trouble. He'd be really fun to talk to.
I have not seen his videos, and I feel bad for saying that, but
He just does like he's famous for his movie commentary Mondays,
oh, okay.
and he he's very like he probably drives really deep into very minute stuff into the movies, which sometimes has had a history of pissing some audience members off. But
Yep,
it's just a joke. He does it for the meme.
that's the
So
best kind. So for this segment, there's not necessarily a question that's going to be asked. Um, from here on out, it's more of giving my guest, in this case Aaron, the freedom to talk about anything he wants, whether there's a certain subject he's been thinking of for a while or anything goes. So if Aaron wants to talk about pizza for any reason, we're going to talk about pizza. Are we talking about pizza?
we're not talking about pizza. Well, actually, no, we're not talking about pizza.
Oh.
It is funny because what I've been thinking about for most of today and yesterday is so for the past year now, as soon as God of War Ragnarok released, there was stuff going around the internet about um, the pre-production of a God of War like game, but based off of the comic book The Last Ronin. from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and um, everyone was like super on board for the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think when people heard God of War, like they were thinking all ranges from like super dark and heavy to maybe even gory and brutal action kind of deal.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure if it'll go to that level, but TH Nordic just announced that it is finally in production. They had a little teaser trailer with a little teaser poster. Um, and they were just announcing that the game's being made. From the developers who made the Destroy All Humans games.
Oh.
So that's fun. I'm not entirely sure if they're still going to stay in that direction of like the God of War like game.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that that was the first comparison because when God of War, before its revival, was big back in the day, there were clones left and right. Probably the most famous and well received clone was Dante's Inferno.
Oh.
But it's just funny to think that now that God of War has been revived and we're 2 games in, that uh, it's inspiring clones again.
Right.
Again, I'm not entirely sure if TH Nordic is going to go in that direction still, but the original pitch that got everyone talking about it was the God of War like game,
Oh,
but
okay.
from the perspective of an aged Ninja Turtle who
Interesting.
who lost all of his brothers. I mean, it's based off of a comic that's a couple years old now.
Right.
The fact that they're making it
Right.
and it's going to be a thing. I don't know how soon. They obviously don't have a release date. They just started developing it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just nice to see, especially now that we're kind of getting back on the rhythm of comic book games.
Right.
I mean, Spider-Man games like Batman, the Arkham series, and the new Spider-Man PlayStation series have skyrocketed the video game in the comic book world. Um, but what's just interesting is that I think the video game studios started getting a little ahead of themselves because we had games like Avengers.
Right.
Then there was the Guardians of the Galaxy game that was well received, and then it was just kind of like a hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like now people are like, okay, now we know what the comic book video game franchise should look like.
Right.
You know, we just had things like the Black Panther just being announced from
Mm-hmm.
EA.
Right.
EA is also doing Iron Man from
Mm-hmm.
Motive, the guys who made the Dead Space remake, which was awesome.
It was beautiful.
Love Dead Space. Kudos to them because
Right.
that was an amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
But just now seeing the TH Nordic taking upon the Ninja Turtles,
Mm-hmm.
more specifically, a much darker story of the Ninja Turtles, I'm
Right.
excited to see where that goes. Hopefully, it's not just another cash grabbing. It turns
Yeah.
into like a whole AAA title.
Yeah. I do remember them talking about like the possibility of having a video game adaptation. I never got my hopes up because it was brand new. So I was like, why would they make a video game off of this?
Right. They typically don't do that, where
Right.
something as fresh as that title would get a game. But
But the story was amazing. Um, so I could see why they would want to use it as inspiration. Um, and to kind of go off of what Aaron was talking about as far as like the game industry with making comic book based video games. One, I think Batman, the Arkham series, really set a standard for
oh
how
yeah,
comic book or superhero video games should be like. And then Insomniac, they did kind of like the same spiel. They did like their own version of Spider-Man. We have a lot of stuff coming, and I hope they realize what went wrong with Avengers and past comic book video games. But I would say my only fear when it comes to the new Last Ronin game, um, is that aside from the arcade TMNT games, the Ninja Turtles have kind of had a bad rep with um the video game industry. Not saying that the video games themselves were like the worst, but they had the TMNT movie tie-in game in
When the
2000.
movie released, it was like 2007, 2008.
Right. And it wasn't a bad game for the time. It was kind of like a lot of other games that were based on like TV shows or what have you,
Movies.
because they had like Ben 10 video games, Avatar video games. It kind of followed within the same line as like you're selected as one of the characters. You go through like a coursed level, and it is what it is. It's very like common hack and slash type thing. But it wasn't a bad game. And if it's actually a game I'd like to revisit sometime in the near future, maybe even on this channel. Um and then they had one that came out maybe like 3 years ago.
It was longer than that, but I know which one you're talking about.
It's like Madness in Manhattan or
Mutants in Manhattan.
Mutants in Manhattan. Whatever it's called, it's gonna be right here, hovering above my hand with editing magic. I never got a chance to play that one. I know that they definitely went with a more unique take on the TMNT, still following a lot of the traditional criteria. There's never been a company that's made like a full-fledged, like top budget
Triple A title.
right, like a AAA title TMNT game. Um, and I wish that they would do that more, because like they nailed it with Spider-Man from Insomniac. Rocksteady did wonders with Batman. And I only hope that future games like the new Iron Man, the new Black Panther, um, the Last Ronin, they all kind of take what Insomniac and Rocksteady did and really put heart and effort into the game, not just for gameplay, but for story writing, and just not throw out another game. Actually, like make it worth paying what, $70 for. But if we're gonna talk about games that we're excited for, Wolverine, Wolverine.
Mhm.
Like, okay, we had X-Men Origins Wolverine, which wasn't bad. It was okay. Knowing what they did with Spider-Man as far as the story, gameplay, they really put in their effort with Spider-Man, making sure that it was exactly what Spider-Man fans wanted. And if you disagree with that statement, then you're not a true Spider-Man fan. Let's just say that. Because that game is just it's too good. Actually, till this day, I still can't think of anything that I have like an issue with. I maybe that's just my
They
opinion.
changed the face of Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only
Okay.
problem with it.
Yeah. Sorry.
They should have, the guy who they replaced his face with,
Yes.
they should have kept his face for Harry. Because honestly, I'm sure the actor is great, but I do not like the way Harry Osborn looks in the new game.
The new Harry Osborns, it was just hard to look at. Okay, well, aside from their decision to swap faces, there's nothing that I personally had an issue with when it came to the first game. As far as the second game goes, I still don't have an issue with what I saw from the gameplay footage. A lot of people are bitching and complaining that it's the same game, just a different story. Well, duh.
Yeah, that's
What?
because the first one did so well. Why
What?
would they change that much?
What?
If anything, it's the same game. They're just adding to it.
What do you think they were supposed to do? Start from scratch all over again? Make a completely new set of like movement, swinging?
And just for people to be bitching and complaining the same amount and being like, "Oh, why'd you change it?"
It was fine the first time.
You know they would have done that.
Oh my god.
People just want something to complain about.
Yeah.
Am I attacking all of you?
Yes. I am. It's dumb.
Oh shit.
Um.
Anyway,
Anyways. So yes, we're excited for the new Last Ronin game. I love the comics.
and Wolverine.
And Wolverine.
Oh, what
And Spider-Man.
about Wolverine though?
in Assassin's Creed.
One thing that I hope that they do different, I've heard a lot of different opinions out there because there's not a lot we know about the game. We do know that the game, someone from the development team opened up about how the game's not gonna hold back. It's supposed to
Oh,
be a rated M game. That's
right.
good. We want an aggressive Wolverine game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want an open world game. I think the game would pay off if it was more linear, maybe something along the lines of like The Last of Us, something that grounded the player a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because they could even, not that the game would be a horror game by any means, but when games are up close and more immersive like that, almost
Mm-hmm.
like Batman, you have potential like characters like Sabretooth or even some of the more aggressive characters in a Wolverine comic book. With that in mind, it being a rated M game, then it makes the combat and the more aggressive stuff more immersive and in your face, which would be a lot of fun. Instead of a more open world game or something like the old Wolverine game, where the players pulled back a little bit and they're seeing everything from a distance.
Right. I agree. I don't think it should be open world.
You can make it kind of how the Last of Us um, PS5
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd call that a remake or a remaster, but they opened up some of the map a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to give the player some space. Or
Right.
like how God of War does technically have an open world map, but you're kind of on a path the whole
Right.
time. That's cool too. But something that just pulls the player in a little
Yeah.
bit more, because if you just have like a big open field
Mm-hmm.
and Wolverine running around everywhere, maybe if they do like a Days Gone thing, he can have a bike.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you'd have a pacing issue. So I think if the game's linear and maybe even chapter based,
Right.
it could have a very unique
Kind of.
narrative.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, use Last of Us as a huge reference to make the Wolverine game.
Yeah.
So with that, this episode is coming to an end. I would like to first thank you for being on my show, being my first guest in what is hopefully going to be a long line of um, interviews and talks with cool people.
Well, thanks for having me.
Aaron will definitely be on many times, whether it's to have another kind of talk or to play games with, or who knows, maybe I'll be on Aaron's show. Make sure to go check out Aaron's channel at Aaron Something. It's not like Aaron, I forgot the other name.
No, it's something like the word something without the G.
Right. So go check out his channel. He's got 2 episodes out so far, and as he mentioned before, a third one is coming soon.
Very
Go,
good.
go check out the other YouTubers we were talking about: Scott Kramer, Mr. GG.
They obviously have bigger followings than we do, but we
But
talked about them a lot, so
right,
we're gonna link them.
so go check them out. But until next time, adios, farewell. We love you guys.
Peace.